So, let's start with the introduction for Git for Dummies. Basically, Git is the backbone of every software program, or almost every software program, because games use another version management. And basically, Git is a version management tool for software projects. Well, Git as a software started because of the development for Linux. When Linux started and was the largest open source project at the time, it needed a version control system to manage the different changes different developers were doing in that project, and to make that possible with current technologies of the time, with current version management tools of the time, it wasn't possible because those tools were very slow and very inefficient, and they basically copied the projects over, which I'll show you that Git does not. So basically, if you're thinking of a version of a software version management, you take a copy of the project files, you do your changes, and another person, another developer in your team takes another copy of those changes, and he or she does their changes, and then you combine these changes. But this becomes very inefficient with many different versions of the files, and that's why Git was born. And Git is fundamentally different from this type of version management, and this is why it has over 90% of market share, with a few exceptions in the gaming industry, because the files in the gaming industry are very huge. The problem that Git solves is as follows. So basically, developer A makes a change in line 42, developer B also makes a change in line 42, and then there's a conflict. Who wins? Well, Git has built-in functionalities to solve these conflicts. Basically, you can choose which one of the changes, or if both of the changes, will stay in line 42. And what makes Git special? Well, Git is a distributed software. It is very fast locally because you make everything locally, and then you push your changes to your Git server. Normally it's GitHub, but it can be GitLab or Azure DevOps, or Bitbucket, or any other server, be it public or private. And Git is also fully functional. It basically has no limitations in version management of software or of files in general, but for files where the content is what you see is what you get. Basically, if the file isn't saved in some magic binary content. Well, Git works differently from traditional files. This is because Git, instead of saving versions of the file, it saves the history of changes on that file. And these are the three trees of Git. It has the working directory, where your files are, the staging area, the changes that are not committed to the permanent history, and the permanent history. And each content addressable storage, basically each commit has its own fingerprint. It has its own hash. It uses the SHA-1 algorithm for hashes, which creates basically these unique keys here, and they serve as the fingerprint for each changes, which can be easily looked up or modified.